Michael Jordan was not always the superstar that we herald him as today. It wasn't like he entered the league in 1984 as the number 3 overall draft pick, and immediately the Chicago Bulls said to themselves, "Yes! We just drafted the greatest player of all time." Prior to his dominance in the 1990s, Michael Jordan had plenty of struggles just like the rest of the superstars that we criticize today. In fact, I feel like it's necessary that we shine a light on Michael Jordan prior to his dominance and actually analyze what made the GOAT the GOAT. We have to go all the way back to 1984, where he was drafted number 3 in the NBA draft behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie. The general manager of the Bulls at the time, Rod Thorne, had a lot to think about. According to Thorne, he said, "Going into the draft, we determined that we were going to take Michael. Unless someone went brain dead and left Hakeem Olajuwon to come down to us, and if Michael didn't get to us, then we would have taken Perkins over Barkley, which would have been a mistake. But thankfully, everything worked out exactly as Rod Thorne had hoped for the Bulls. Michael Jordan would go number 3 and the rest would be history, but the only thing Rod Thorne would worry about is if Jordan could ever develop a jumper." This video is sponsored by MyBookie. You know what my favorite part about this time of year is, guys? Sweater weather, leaves on the ground, and threes from downtown. That's right. For some, it's fall season, but for the rest of us, it's ball season. Put those pumpkin spice lattes aside and grab a beer, because pro and college ball are tipping off, and there's no better way to feel a part of the action than to have a stake in the game with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy who likes to bet a little to win a lot, try a parlay. For instance, if you like a couple of the big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. Either way, if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing and go to mybookie.ag because no one gives you more ways to win. The NBA is back in action, and it's time to turn your attention from carving pumpkins to the crazy year of basketball we have ahead of us. The offseason was especially eventful this year, and the league was thrown for a loop. Use your basketball knowledge to prove you have what it takes at mybookie.ag, where they make it easy to play and even easier to get paid. And if you join now, MyBookie will double your first deposit. Use promo code Theflightmike to activate the offer. That's promo code Theflightmike to double your cash. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. So coming out of North Carolina, Michael Jordan was known for his ability to get to the rim, and he had no doubt in his ability to acquire a jump shot. Especially in the 1980s, you didn't need to have the craziest shooting. You would only need to be able to make the occasional mid-range jumper, and that would be enough to compete with the competition of those times. But Michael Jordan was able to do that and some. In Michael's first year, he would set the NBA on fire. In his rookie year, everybody knew that he was going to be trouble for a long time. Michael Jordan would play and start in all 82 games, and as a rookie would average 28 points, 6 assists, and 6.5 rebounds, all while shooting 51% from the field in 38 minutes per game. In Jordan's first playoff appearance versus the Sidney Moncrief-led Bucks, he would lose 3 games to 1. His field goal percentage dropped to 44% while playing 43 minutes per game. So in 1985, Jerry Krause and the Chicago Bulls will bring in a brand new head coach, and his name would be Stan Albeck. Prior to his Bulls experience, Albeck had 5 seasons above 500% win percentage in basketball with the San Antonio Spurs and the New Jersey Nets. Jordan would only appear in 18 games that season, and the team would finish 30-52. Jordan broke the navicular bone in his left foot, which was why he missed 64 games. There was controversy surrounding Jordan's foot injury, but in those moments, Jerry Reinsdorf, owner of the Chicago Bulls, gained tremendous respect for Jordan. Jordan battled management about returning to the floor, but obviously they wouldn't let their star risk their career in such a way. So after much deliberation, Reinsdorf did not have the heart to refuse Jordan's right to play basketball. He would return in March of 1986, slowly but surely getting back to his old self. The Bulls would have their second playoff experience in 2 seasons, this time facing off with the Celtics dynasty. This short playoff series would be memorable for Michael Jordan as he scored 49 points in Game 1. In Game 2, Jordan would score a record-setting 63 points, which included 17 in the first, 6 in the second, 13 in the third, and 18 in the fourth, along with 9 points between 2 overtimes. Larry Bird told the Boston Globe at that moment, "I would never have called him the greatest player I'd ever seen if I didn't mean it. It's just God disguised as Michael Jordan." Jordan would go on to struggle in Game 3, and the Bulls would be swept by the Boston Celtics. 4 weeks after the playoffs concluded for Chicago, Stan Albeck was let go, and it was a shock to most, especially Albeck. According to the LA Times, going into the 1986-87 season, Albeck would have stood as the third in wins amongst active coaches with a total over 300, ranking with the likes of Casey Jones and Don Nelson. And the most tragic thing is that the talents of a once-in-a-lifetime player like Michael Jordan have to be wasted while the basketball part of the front office tries to learn the game through on-the-job training. 2 coaches in 2 years can be tough for a team, especially for a superstar. So the firing of Stan Albeck would open the door for Doug Collins, a first-time coach. Now, bear in mind, if you were to make this comparison this early in his career, I would say Jordan and LeBron James had very similar careers, because you would see Michael Jordan potentially have his talent wasted on teams that were not really up to par with his standards because of management problems. But Jordan would show no signs of slowing down after returning from the navicular break in his left foot during the prior season. He would pick up right where he left off after some extremely impressive performances against Boston. Doug Collins focused on a game plan that I believe we would all try if Jordan was our player. Give Jordan the ball and get out of the way. Jordan played 40 minutes a game in his 1986-87 season, which is his first year under Doug Collins, and that is actually insane. This would never change during Collins' tenure as the coach of the Bulls. Jordan's shot attempts skyrocketed to nearly 28 shots a game. His free throw attempts were up to 12 a game, while averaging 37.1 points per game. Bruh, 37.1 points per game. His field goal efficiency tumbled down to 48, but his free throw efficiency improved to balance it out. How would this type of volume scoring affect Jordan and the Bulls? Was it for the better or was it for the worse? There was only one other player on the Bulls during the 1986-87 season that would average double-digit field goal attempts, and that was Charles Oakley. He averaged 14 points and 13 rebounds per game that year. 3 years of first-round exits, questions had to swirl. Do the Bulls move on to yet another coach? Can Jordan do this for much longer, and where does the roster go from here? This leads up to one of the, if not the most important moment in Chicago Bulls history, and that's the 1987 NBA draft. The night before the draft, Krause worked out a deal that would send the number 8 pick, 2 future second-round picks, and a future first-round pick swap to the Seattle Supersonics for the 5th overall pick. The Bulls would select Scottie Pippen 5th overall and would go on to select Horace Grant 10th overall. They may have not known it at the time, but these are 2 vital pieces that would truly help get the franchise to the next level. The 1987-88 season was an interesting year for the NBA. You could really see that at any point the torch would be passing very soon. The Celtics were beginning to reach their end, the Lakers were looking for their final hurrah, and the Hawks, Bulls, Pistons, and Jazz were all primed to make their leap to contention. You would think that Jordan and the Bulls would be the sure bet to make, right? Well, Jordan has been the dominant individual performer since day one. It was only a matter of time until it led to winning. The Bulls would finish their season 50-32. Collins led the Bulls to their best regular season since 1973-74. Things are beginning to look up as they head into the playoffs to match up with a talented Cleveland Cavaliers team led by Mark Price. It would be a hard-fought series where once again, Michael Jordan put on an absolute dominant individual performance. The Bulls would win 3-2, and Jordan would finish the series averaging 45 points, shooting 56% from the field and 92% from the free throw line. He added 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and nearly 3 steals and 1.5 blocks. And in the second round, the Bulls would eventually match up with another late 80s powerhouse, the Bad Boy Pistons. This Pistons team was one of a kind, a well-balanced offense ran by a no-games type of coach in Chuck Daly. Their defense is what earned them the Bad Boys slogan. Nobody liked them, and they didn't care. They were going to do whatever it took to get them a win. Michael suffered firsthand what the Bad Boys were all about in the second round of the 1988 NBA playoffs. The Pistons would beat the Bulls, and Jordan would go on to have one of his worst performances of his short NBA career. In 42 minutes, Jordan was only averaging 27 points points per game and only shot 79% from the free throw line, which I know sounds good still, but this was a significant step down from his dominance versus Cleveland, and his team felt it. At first, it seemed like the strategy was to let Jordan do what he wants and it would favor the opposition. Detroit has discovered a strategy to thwart Jordan and like-minded players, and they named it the Jordan Rules. The Jordan Rules was a series of read and react type of defensive approaches as explained by Chuck Daly to Sports Illustrated. Pretty much, to sum things up, Michael Jordan was playing hero ball, so they were going to double and triple team him. The other rule was anytime he went by you, you had to nail him. If he was coming off a screen, nail him. We didn't want to be dirty. I know some people thought we were, but we had to make contact and be very physical. Michael Jordan and the Bulls were thwarted by these approaches for quite some time. In the summer of 1989, Doug Collins was fired from his position as head coach. The Bulls have had 3 different coaches in just 5 years, and the Bulls tried to draft the best they could to support Jordan, yet it didn't seem to work. Then came in the turning point of Michael Jordan's career. And this is the move that changed the landscape of his career, because at this point, Jordan has had 3 coaches. None of them worked. He's starting to get this reputation as a guy that's uncoachable potentially because no one is able to stick with him. And if he's truly this transcendent talent, they should have no problem staying pat and coaching the guy. But they went ahead and brought in Coach Phil Jackson, and pretty much what he did was he installed the triangle offense. They would go on to win 55 games during the 1989 to 90 season with Phil Jackson at the helm. Phil was able to take Jordan and the Bulls to the next level using the triangle offense. The Bulls would again meet the bad boy Pistons in the 1990 NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals and would fail again. But this time, Chicago would take them to 7 games. It just wasn't enough. The difference this time around is that Jordan finally had them really figured out. It would be up to Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and the rest of the bunch to master the triangle and take this team to the highest level. And let me give you guys a spoiler. They would do just that. When the 1991 playoffs rolled around, everyone knew it was the Bulls' turn. Jordan and Pippen were beginning to peak, and the Pistons were beginning to fall apart. The Bulls would win 61 games in 1991 and beat the Magic Johnson-led Lakers in the finals. They would win 67 games in 1992 and win back-to-back, this time against the Clyde Drexler-led Trailblazers. In 1993, they would win 57 games and beat the Barkley-led Suns to three-peat. Jordan would step away from basketball for a few years, return late in the 95 season, and the Bulls would lose in the second round to the Orlando Magic, but Jordan and the Bulls were just getting worn back up. In 1996, the Bulls would win, at the time, a record-setting 72 games and would beat the Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp-led Seattle Supersonics in the finals. In 1997, they would win 69 games and defeat the Stockton and Malone-led Utah Jazz in the finals to repeat. Finally, in 1998, they would win 62 games and once again defeat the Jazz to repeat for the second time in just 8 years. After their 6th championship together, Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson would step away from the Chicago Bulls. Phil vowed to coach again, but he would eventually return to the Los Angeles Lakers. Michael Jordan would later return for the second time of retirement to play for the Washington Wizards. Who knows what could have happened to Jordan's career if Phil Jackson never came around? Maybe he would have won a championship or two, but it's safe to say that Phil Jackson was instrumental in unleashing Jordan's full potential as a champion.